Hi, and welcome to Next Gen Game Development with Unity 3D Volume 2, Unity Softimage and ZBrush Production Pipeline. I'm i3D Jack, and I'm going to be taking you through this training product and showing you how to incorporate Softimage and ZBrush into your production pipeline for creating AAA quality games with the Unity engine. Okay, so a little bit about Softimage. Softimage is from Autodesk. It's a powerful 3D animation package that can be used for a lot of different things. For example, visual effects studios use it for doing special effects and shots for film, TV commercials, and broadcast. It's also used by AAA game studios around the world. Studios like Capcom, Konami, and Lionhead Studios use it. ZBrush from Pixelogic is a high-end sculpting package that's used by most of the top artists in the industry, and most AAA studios working on games in the industry use ZBrush in their pipeline day in and day out to create high-end polished AAA assets for their games. Okay, so it's extremely important. So the goal of this training product is to show you how to integrate Unity, Softimage, and ZBrush into an efficient pipeline in order to create professional game assets for next-gen AAA game productions, with an emphasis, of course, on the Unity pipeline. So we're going to be looking at how to take assets, create them from scratch inside of Softimage, sculpt them in ZBrush, bring them back into Softimage, and pipe them on through to the Unity engine. So some of the things we're going to be covering in this tutorial and this training product is design and conceptualization. This is extremely important. This comes first and foremost. If you don't have a design and a concise concept down on paper and planned out, you're not going to get a game, period. Okay? So you want to make sure you have a good design and concept ready to go. Once that's done, you need to move on to actual modeling. Now I'm going to show you in this tutorial modeling low-res objects for games. It's pretty much the meat and potatoes of this tutorial. It's the core of it, how to actually create objects for your games. And this is going to be broken up into two ideas or philosophies, okay? A, looks, and B, performance. So with looks, we want our objects to look phenomenal. We want them to look great. Sometimes we have to create objects with a lot of triangles in order to make them look good. But at the same time, we have to be careful not to go too far because we need the game to run very optimized and with a lot of performance. So if your game looks phenomenal, but it plays at about 10 frames a second, you have yourself a problem. Your game is just not going to run well, and most gamers will not want to play your game if it runs at anything below 30 frames a second. So that's very important. We're also going to be going over sculpting and incorporating ZBrush into your pipeline. This is extremely important. It's another core element of this training product, is showing you how to incorporate ZBrush into your pipeline. So everything from the art flow of sculpting and making things look good all the way to technicalities like how do you get stuff into ZBrush? How do you get it out? What are the best technical, things to follow and rules and things like that in order to not run into any bugs or problems in your pipeline? I'm going to be showing you that in this training product. Normal mapping is nothing new, but we're going to be going over it in this training product because it's extremely important, and without it, you really don't have a next-gen AAA game. So in order to make your game look good, we're going to be using normal mapping to bake high-resolution details from the sculpts and high-res objects in Softimage, and baking those details onto normal maps that can be applied to our low-res in-game objects and make them look decent, go from looking decent to looking phenomenal. So we're going to be looking at that. Subdivision surface modeling, also known as Subds. Subds are not supported directly by the Unity engine, or most engines to my knowledge. So how can we use Subds in our pipeline? Well, we can't use Subds directly inside of the Unity engine, but we can use Subds inside of Softimage, and they can perform a couple of different functions. One of them is to create clean base models for us to take into ZBrush and then sculpt on, and they can also serve a purpose of creating high-res models right inside of Softimage or whatever 3D package we're using, and we can actually normal map inside of Softimage. We don't have to do it in ZBrush. Data asset exchange is very important, and I'm going to be going over this in detail. Data asset exchange is basically a fancy term for saying getting your stuff from Softimage into the Unity engine. Okay, it's very important. One of the toughest things inside of the 3D industry is getting information and data from one environment to another. So, for example, when you get data from Softimage into ZBrush, that's called data asset exchange. when you get data from Softimage into Unity, that's data asset exchange. It's whenever you get data to move from one program to another. That's data asset exchange. Unfortunately, data asset exchange is one of those things that opens up the doors to all kinds of stuff going wrong. Okay? When you're moving stuff from one environment to another, that's when things kind of go haywire, stuff starts to break, bugs start to show up, and you can go into a hair-pulling session. But in this training product, I'm going to show you some really good practices and techniques so that you can avoid those pitfalls, so that you can successfully get your stuff in and out of Softimage and ZBrush and Unity without a problem. Okay? And more. So there's going to be a lot covered in this training product. Thanks a lot for coming to i3D and trusting us with your training. I'm sure you're going to love this training product. A lot of work went into it, and a lot of detail was put into the planning of this training product and what to cover, so that developers out there with the Unity engine, both professionals as well as indies and students, can take advantage of it and start making higher quality games and higher quality assets for your games. Okay, so we have a lot to cover. I'm going to end this video here. We're going to go ahead and get started in the next video and move on to get this training product done. There's a lot of stuff that I want to cover, and let's go ahead and get started.